All right, welcome back, folks. We're about to wrap up this little project demo here with the third in this series. First, we talked about how to get set up on GitHub and install Sass and browser sync. Then we looked specifically at how to use Sass. And now we're going to wrap up by demonstrating how to push all this up to the remote repo and create a pull request and finalize that pull request as well. So just a couple little things to run you through to kind of give you a sense of how this project ended up. Over here, you saw me create several of these partials. I've created a few more partials so that all that's left in styles.sass is imports for all the other partials that I have. Note that the ordering can be important. I have my reset first, then variables, since I might use variables in all of these other files, including mixins. Then mixins, because I might use mixins in each of these other files. Then my sort of most basic elements, then my navigation, then my grids, then my objects. And the order down here is probably not as important as the first few up here. I have variables for all of my colors and my two different kinds of fonts. Notice that I've used kind of generic type names for each of these, as opposed to calling this, green or brown or something like that. The idea there is that if we decided to use, orange instead of green, and I had called the variable green, now I have to not only change the value, but I also have to go find all instances of green and replace it with orange. So when I use a more ubiquitous name like this, accent, body, primary, secondary, they're not married to any specific color name, and so I can change the actual value here and instantly change the color throughout my entire site. So just to kind of give a visual illustration of this, let's say that we wanted to use purple instead of the green for the primary color here. So I could go into here and say purple, and everywhere that green was is now purple. Simply by changing the variable value, that primary color is used to actually set this elsewhere. So that's not what we actually want, but you can see how quick it is to change things site-wide. Same thing with fonts. We used a primary and a secondary font so that any place we had used the primary font could easily be changed. Any place we use this secondary font could easily be changed. All right. Let's see. I also wanted to show you a few more things about Sass. And that is, let's see, over here in the nav. There are times where you want to have a selector like this, where you say ULs directly inside of nav. And I just wanted to show you that this is how you do that with Sass. So the idea was we nested the UL selector inside of a nav selector. But if we want to reference that parent, we need to use ampersand, and then we can finish this off with the inheritance thing. Okay, the same idea goes if you needed to have a class attached to a parent item. So here we have radios inside of li grid item, and so the idea is I want it to be li.radios and grid item.radios. So same idea, I reference the parent with an ampersand, and then when this compiles, I'm going to get .radios attached to any of the parent selectors there. All right. So just checking on my commits here. Yep, we're going to make these changes. So final changes after demo. Okay, so I've made my changes. I'm pushing to origin. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to show you. It was going to be kind of a pain over here in terminal to have to always type browser sync start f sf, and all this goop. So there's something else you can do to make it a little shorter, or at least a little easier to remember. As an option, you can run browser sync init. When you hit return, what happens is browser sync creates a config file for you. It's called bs config, and when you open it up, you'll see something like this, and there are a few places that you can change in order to kind of have a config that will do all the things we wanted to do automatically. So you'll find files is set to false, and if you change it to contain that funny little glob string, you'll be able to watch all the files the way we want them to. Also, you'll find that server was set to false. If you change it to true, then it will set up a server every time you start. So now all you need to do is run browser sync, start, and then do config or bsconfig. Now you might find that just as short as actually typing this stuff out. So whatever is easier for you. But when you run this now, it fires up again. This way, if you had a whole bunch of other settings that you wanted to configure, I mean, there's just tons more here that you can configure than you'd ever want to type into the terminal every time you wanted to start a server. But anyway, that's another little change that I made that kind of wraps this up. All right, all those things done. Now we've pushed all this up to GitHub, and we're ready to actually create a pull request. So the first thing you want to make sure to do in the context of this course is enable me as a collaborator so that I can come in and review merge requests. So you want to go to Settings and Collaborators and type in my username, and that's just my full name, no spaces, Phil Shanley. And then you add me as a collaborator. You'll be able to kind of set some other settings on me there to be sure that I have the right level of access. But then once you're in, once you've got me added and you are ready to create a pull request, you can do that one of two ways. So GitHub notices that we recently pushed changes to develop, and it offers us this quick shortcut, so that's nice. But if you ever wanted to see it a different way, you can create a new pull request here, or you can go to pull requests where you'll be able to see any pending pull requests, and you can create a new pull request. So I'm going to do that just so you have the full experience. So new pull request, and now we're going to say what we want to merge into. That's the base, so we want to go into master. What do we want to bring into master? The develop branch. So when I choose that, now GitHub is going to automatically look at those two branches and make sure that there aren't any conflicts that need to be resolved. If it calls out any conflicts that need to be resolved, what you would need to do is go over and resolve those conflicts, deal with the changes basically, and then upload a new commit. So I think they also provide the opportunity for you to resolve them right here in line, but we'll tackle that as needed. The idea is that you might have made some changes to files that other people made changes to at the very same time, and so it's challenging for GitHub to kind of figure out exactly which changes should be kept and where the new things should go. So you want to be able to kind of add some human intelligence onto that and resolve those conflicts. All right, but assuming everything is fine, again, you can scroll down and see the files before and the files after. So you can just see we added a lot of stuff. I'm not really sure why it flags all of these. I think Adam does some, maybe remove some white space or something, but overall, a lot of new files comparing the original master to all the stuff we did in develop. Okay, so assuming there's no conflicts to resolve, we can now create the pull request, where as you saw in an earlier video, we want to give a good name here. So completed refactoring with Sass. And you could leave any other thoughts here or any particular questions that you have for your reviewers, or for me in this case. Speaking of reviewers, what you want to do then is come over here and add me as a reviewer on your project. This ensures that I get notified about this pull request. So very important that you do this. Okay, once you've put someone on, you might also get the opportunity to indicate that they must approve before a merge is allowed to happen, and you want to enable that option. Not a big deal, but do watch for it once you add me on as a reviewer. Okay, the rest here is kind of all other metadata things that might not be relevant for right now. So that said, what we're going to do is create the pull request. And now any of those reviewers would be notified. So now it's a matter of somebody coming along and making sure that everything is looking good. So in this case, if this was your project, I would have been notified and I would come in and I might look directly at your files here, or I might actually go over and clone the project, look at it locally, run some tests, try some other things, and I'll come back in and leave comments for anything. What you want to look for is any changes that I suggest, or whether I say I approve, go ahead and merge. If I say that I approve, go ahead and merge, or signal otherwise approval, what you want to do is come here to the merge pull request option, but don't just click it. What I want you to do is drop down. I want you to choose squash and merge. Okay, what this is going to do is condense all of those commits into one neat commit that's going to be pushed onto master. They all stay over here on develop, and that's great. We want them to remain in the history of the develop branch, but we don't need all of those details recognized in the master branch. Okay, so we are going to now run this as if approval was completed. And so notice that it gives me the opportunity to fine-tune the actual message. And notice that it has pulled in my previous commits as, let's see, as like a bulleted list here, which is great. So instead of doing completed refactoring with SAS, if that's indeed the name, it's actually the name of the pull request, so that's a decently logical name. It may be that what I actually want to do is begin doing some kind of version numbering. So this could be version 1.1.0. And talking about how to do version numbering is perhaps another topic. But basically, every time you make a teeny tiny bug fix, you would increment this number. Anytime you add a new feature, you would increment this number. And anytime you make an overall breaking change to the whole system, you would increment this number. So since we added new features, really, or refactored, I'm going to call this a feature version. But no big deal to worry about that. You could just leave a nice clean commit as long as it just reads well to somebody who might be reviewing this in the future. All right, and so now we're going to confirm squash and merge. Okay, pull request was successfully merged and closed. Now I do not want to delete my develop branch because I might continue to do work on that in the future. But now if I switch over and I look at my master, notice that my master has just two commits, the initial file set and the version 1.1.0. So that keeps this nice and clean. If I switch over to develop, I can see more of the details of what's been happening all along. That is the process we're going to walk through for finishing up this project. Look forward to hearing from you and moving forward.